joining all three of us from. It is a very special edition, the first ever edition of what we're calling the Press Row Press Pass. We bring a exclusive guest on for a standalone interview away from our usual 3-hour show here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Is always brought to you by Playback TV and now brought to you by the Novik Sportsbook as well. Nick Morgeson is joining us as always in Plainview, New York. Callum McClurg here in San Diego. Nick, we have a very awesome guest joining us here today for the first edition of the Press Pass program. Again, a interview exclusively done. No other topics on the table today. Nick, good morning. Good to see you. How are we doing today?
I'm good, man. You know, I love doing this show. I love talking the sports media, but I love talking to great people. And our guest is a very good person to have on this show. Casey, how you doing today?
What's going on, boys? How are we this morning and early this morning in your respective time zones?
Yes. Well, we're doing great, Casey. Thanks again for the time. I know that we've been, working around schedules and, getting the time correct. But as always, Casey, we thank you so much for joining us and for taking some time to be a part of the show today and welcome on board to the Playback platform.
No, it's my pleasure. We get the Mets and Padres in the middle of pennant chases, and I got Plainview, Long Island, and San Diego. And with no disrespect to Plainview, because I grew up in Massapequa, which is about 15 minutes from there. Born in Baldwin, not far away, but I'd way rather be in San Diego. So one of you's got the leg up on the other, for sure.
No, but I just want to tell one quick thing. So Casey and I go back a little bit. He actually was on my radio show at Nassau Community College.
That's correct.
And we did weeklies for a little while. That's how nice Casey was to me being on the show. And I'll give you one more, Callan. He actually helped me do a school project where I interviewed him.
Awesome.
I just remembered that. So I remember obviously being on your campus or on your college radio show. Now that you say that, I do remember the question. It was like an interview questionnaire of some sort, right?
Yes. I had to interview a bunch of big names, and I remember I said, "Oh, I know Casey. Let me reach out."
That's the only time I've ever been the focus of anybody's school project. Even my kids don't want to do a school project about me. So,
come on, man.
That's the only time that's ever happened. So I'm very
that's incredible.
But I do remember that. Yes.
Yeah, I remember getting a full A on that grade.
You got an A on it? Yeah.
Yes.
See, you never came back and you never thanked me, and I never got a cut. But that's all right.
Until today.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. These are my flowers. Welcome.
No, but nicest guy in the business, and we're going to get into a lot of different topics. And where should we start? You want to start, Callan, and I'll follow up?
Yeah, of course. Again, Casey, thank you so much again for the time. Again, we're thrilled to have you on board. I'm sure a lot of people that know you, they've listened to you, they've watched you, but they know you though from your time with Turner Sports and with SiriusXM. But going back to the beginning, because we both kind of know that you wanted to be Bob Murphy from a very young age. Obviously, Bob's brother, Jack, was instrumental in my hometown getting what was San Diego Stadium built. Obviously, when Jack passed away, it became San Diego Jack Murphy Stadium at one point in time before corporations took over the old stadium where the Padres and Chargers and SDSU football played. But Casey, more importantly, what was the moment you realized that, that the dream that was, or the moment you realized though that that dream was truly your calling of trying to be in the booth somewhere with either New York sports or just in general?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I often talk about this, but the moment that I probably noticed, or all the moments, were when I was a kid. I mean, I was, I joke about this, but it's true. I remember getting up in first grade or kindergarten. I can remember how early they do that, but they always go around and they ask you what you want to be when you grow up. And the person next to me is like, oh, the usual. Now they probably all have to say Taylor Swift, all the women. But, back then it was like, an astronaut or this or that. And everybody's got a different answer. And I want to be a painter. And I stood up and I said, I want to be Bob Murphy. And nobody in the classroom had any idea who I was talking about. And I was like 5. So I always wanted to be in the business. I think the closer I got to it, the more I realized it would become a reality. There was a point where it went from, oh, this is a dream and this is something that would be really cool to do. Like being Batman would be cool also. But there was a point where I realized I had a chance to do it. And that's when those moments became a little bit more serene, when I realized that this was actually going to be a possibility and not just some stupid thing that I was going to say for most of my life that I should have done,
Well, just looking at some I was reading up on you and some other stuff, and I saw that you started in the financial world on Wall Street.
I did. I worked for the S&P 500. I did. Yes.
So was that the calling? Was the sports broadcasting the
No,
calling?
that was not the calling. That was long days on the Long Island Railroad at like 5 in the morning. It was, the only thing it was calling me to was a therapist. That's no. Yeah, I went to school. So I went to BU, and then I went to school for journalism. I wanted to be a broadcaster. That was always kind of my thing. And, things happen in life. Family needed me back home, and I went back to New York, and it just seemed like the path was going to be too difficult, and there was easier money, being honest. I mean, there was easier money. I was sitting there in my early 20s, and I was working in bond ratings and sales and, doing the, suit and tie Wall Street thing. And I was getting more and more miserable. And by the day, so eventually I moved out to LA for about 2.5 years and, found myself. Most people find like fame. I just found myself, but it was fine. And then I came back, and that was when I really was like, I'm not going to be okay if I don't at least give this a real shot. And I got a break, and the rest is history. Because really, this business, unfortunately, in a lot of ways, is about, just getting that opportunity. And then when the door opens, knocking it down.
Yeah, Casey, your first jobs in sports involved MLB.com, MSG Networks. What did you learn, though, about the industry and yourself probably during the very early days that was foundational for the rest of your career in sports?
Good question. I think that the minute you think you know everything, you know nothing. And it's honestly, it's that way in, I think, every career. And that if you're in a spot where you believe that you have reached the pinnacle of knowledge that you can have, and you're as good as you could be, then you're in the worst spot you could be in. And I think, that was probably the biggest lesson that I learned. So just, realizing how many different people could give you knowledge and experience. There were some people who were great at breaking stories. Some people were, great on radio. Some people didn't do radio, but were great on television, really understood, how to, for me, like, spending years at a desk, that's not easy, teeing up analysts, and you've got basically 37 seconds to do this and 24 seconds to get to a commercial. It's not as easy as doing a 4-hour talk show, which I did for 12 years. So, just kind of learning from different people and the importance of that. I think it really is huge. In this industry, we all can learn from each other. And I think the more we do that, the better.
So one of the more fascinating parts of your journey was ESPN Dream Job.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk through that experience, partially what that was about? Because I remember that show partially, but a lot of people, this was before like an influencer revolution and all the social media. So tell everybody about Dream Job.
So 2004 or 2003, and then in 2004, they did it the second year. And, there was a reality show on ESPN where the winner was going to get a job on SportsCenter and become a SportsCenter anchor. So how I got into this was honestly kind of a weird story. But karma. So I got a call from my best friend's mother, who never called my phone. And I was at work and in New York City. And she said, hey, nothing's wrong. I was good. And she said, I just want to tell you, I just heard an ESPN commercial on the radio, and I thought of you because I know you've been thinking of getting into broadcasting. And apparently tomorrow morning, they're having this thing outside ESPN Zone where everybody's going to line up, and they're doing different cities. And she sent me the website, etc. I looked at it and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to make it. I'm not going to go sit there and wait online. I haven't done this, really even since college, even thought about this. There's no way it's going to work. Fast forward a few hours, I go to the Monday Night Football game against the Cowboys in a Dave Meggett jersey. And my two best friends, when we leave the game, start driving home. And I realize they're not taking me back to Long Island. Why are we in Manhattan, which you do not have to do? And they basically had cahooted to drop me off on the corner of ESPN Zone at 3:00 in the morning. And the audition started at 8:00. I was the 6th person online. And you fast forward, there's 10,000 people that audition in the country. And I was one of 12 who made the show and came in 4th.
Man, that's still incredible. And I kind of wish ESPN would have been able to kind of do that. I guess, Casey, to kind of follow up on that question is, What was that experience like, though? Obviously, you said, it kind of felt like your kids kind of, or your friends kind of kidnapped you to go from Long Island
Yeah,
to Manhattan. Like,
yeah.
you don't have to do this, as you said, though. But maybe from a broader perspective, though, what was it like to be so close to the big time, but not quite get there? And how do you handle that rejection, though, in that kind of a, moment like that, where like, hey, we like you, but we're not going to give you the job.
Yeah, it was kind of wild ups and downs because I remember the show where so there were a lot of auditions. After the first one, they didn't call me for like 2 months. So I thought there's no way I made it. And I got a call, and I remember this is still when they had phones on the wall in the kitchen. My mother answered and handed me the phone. And it was one of the talent people telling me from Dream Job that I had made it to the next round and I needed to be in the city. I think it was like 2 days after that. There were intense rounds of auditions. I ended up during the cut to 12 finding out I'm on the show. It was very emotional. It was amazing. That was kind of really my moment. I was like, holy crap, like I really have a chance to do this. The show was a little bit of it was intense. I mean, there's a lot of filming. It was on once a week. But it was a lot of filming, staying in New York at a hotel, all the reality show things that you do. And it's not an excuse because it worked out the best for me. But I think I crumbled a little bit because I had, 3 or 4 episodes in been the favorite or whatever. And I had a bad day. We actually had trivia as half of the episode. I got kicked off and I'm super good at it. I even got wrong who had won the Vesna the year before. And I was like the only one who liked hockey. And I think it was Marty Turco, if I recall. It was him
Oh,
or
wow.
Brodeur.
It's a
But
throwback.
regardless, I got kicked off. And to your point, it was difficult because I felt like, maybe the journey is over, but it had just started. Tony Kornheiser had kind of through a contact reached out to me. He was one of the judges on the show and got me in touch with the agent who I still have today. And the rest was history. I had a job at MLB.com about a month and a half afterwards and my career had started. Yeah.
Amazing.
So I look at you as a grinder. Like you've worked very hard in your career, doing many
Thank you.
different jobs. For young broadcasters and journalists today, what's the one piece of advice about perseverance and hard work that you wish you'd been given at the beginning of your career?
That more people will be against you is tough. You will not be able to make as many people happy as you want all the time. And everybody has a unique taste. Everybody has a unique style. And, I'm always, I'll give you an example. Skip Bayless has made way more money than I have in my career. And he is still extremely successful and has had a successful career. And I think he has a lot of talent. I won't listen or watch anything that he does because I find it highly obnoxious, right?
Yes.
But there are people who would tell you how much they love him. So, I mean, it's very subjective industry that way, and you can't let it get you down. And there are going to be different turns and curves where you're like, well, I should have gotten this show, or why didn't I get this opportunity? Or why was it him and her over me? And what didn't I do well enough? And you have to kind of be introspective, but not take that stuff personally and just learn from each opportunity. I think that's a huge lesson because this is not show business, but very similarly, there will be a lot of doors that slam in your face. And if you can't handle rejection and you take it personally, this is not somebody breaking up with you. This is not a relationship. This is somebody just for whatever reason that was in an office or in a production crew or on a channel or a radio station or whoever, whatever. You just weren't their taste. But it doesn't mean that you're not great. And it doesn't mean you're not somebody else's. So, I think for people who are younger in the industry, I always talk about making sure to persevere through the rejection for sure.
Absolutely. Casey Stern joining us here on the Press Row Press Pass here on Playback, here on ETB, brought to you by Playback, and also brought to you by Novig as well. Casey, you've worked on some of the biggest stages in sports. I mean, we're talking MLB on TBS, March Madness, filling in on Inside the NBA. Casey, one thing that Nick and I always love to discuss, though, too, is the preparation that goes into the job. People think that we can just roll into the studio, roll into the station, and we already know what we're going to talk about, though, but there's so much that goes into it. For example, I work as a public address announcer in minor league hockey. I work in college athletics, and I'm always up late trying to get all of my material correct where I know that I'm getting people's names right and I know what I'm getting myself into. And, Nick's talked about his time, calling college basketball games at LIU back when he was in college. But Casey, more importantly, What is the major difference or biggest differences when you, for example, prep for the pregame show on Turner or the postgame show after a baseball playoff game compared to maybe a traditional play-by-play broadcast that Brian Anderson's going to do that night for the ALCS, for example, on TBS?
Yeah, I think it's different. And to be honest with you, it's even different, doing 12 years of afternoon drive radio for 4 hours. That's all, the preparation is different. When I was doing baseball every day during those years on Sirius XM, there's a lot of prep because you are staying up late to watch games. You are up in the morning, highlights. You're, back and forth texting with guests, trying to get them on the show. You're following stories that developed overnight. There's so much that goes on that you kind of get so locked into baseball. You don't even honestly, guys, realize to the nerd level you've gotten when you're in like year 6 of that 12-year run. And like, you can name every player that's ever played on anywhere. I mean, that's how locked in you are from a preparation standpoint. TV is very different. You are working with a production crew to find out what the plan is and the rundown that they want to put on the show. And then you are preparing as much as you can, involvement in those decisions, but also to make sure to execute and have the knowledge to ask the questions you need. The thing about television is, a lot of times, people don't listen. They take, here are the 3 questions that I'm going to ask the 3 people who are on the desk. And the people who are successful, like Ernie, who I had a chance to fill in for a bunch and work with, those people are the best listeners in the business. I always say, from play-by-play standpoint, Vin Scully's the best to ever do it, in my opinion.
1,000%.
And Doc Emmerich and others are up there on that list for me. But one thing about him is he let the game breathe. And you have to, from a TV standpoint, know how to let the analyst breathe. But if you do not prep and you don't work with your co-hosts and find out the things, to me, watching games with them was the biggest part of doing post game. I used to sit and take notes because then I never knew when I wanted to use, hey, look, it's interesting you said that, Jimmy, because Pedro, in the 6th inning, you were talking about X, Y, and Z. Those are the things that really kind of give you that next level outside of, hey, what did you think of that at bat in the 7th, and so on and so forth. So I think sometimes you have to over prep. And I say this all the time. There's, going back to something you asked me before, there's nothing more successful, in terms of if you want to be that way, than preparation. And you asked me about moments I knew I'd make it. And one that comes to mind actually now, talking about prep, is I was at Sirius XM. I had literally just started there, and I'd come off MSG, and still, to me, that wasn't making it because I knew there was more in there for me. And, one of the first games that I did in the postseason, I got to work with Buck Martinez, who's a longtime friend of mine now, one of the greatest guys ever. And he did not know who the hell I was. We just met that night, but the Yankees were playing the Phillies in the World Series at Yankee Stadium. And I'll never forget, because it was a huge seminal, my hair just stood up. It was a huge seminal moment for me in my life, let alone career. But I asked him on the walk back to the subway at a Yankee Stadium, I said, I need you to give me an honest assessment of how you think I did. And the thing he said was, if you prepare the way I saw you prepare tonight, you will be successful. Always remember that. And that, to me, is something I always remembered. Preparation is the key to success in everything, but especially in this business.
Wow. So I guess, because you were talking about this earlier, like you were talking about guys like listening to Ernie and listening to other guys. Have you ever had the chance to sit with like an Ernie Johnson and kind of pick the brain of those guys? And what was that conversation like?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. I worked with Ernie for almost 8 years. So, even when I was doing baseball, and he's a baseball guy too, obviously, as well knows. So, I mean, yeah, getting a chance to work with him, anytime that I would run by, I remember, I don't care if it's Bob Costas, anybody that you see in the business that you respect, there's so many. Always talking, always having those conversations about like, hey, I really like when you did this. Like, how do you do that? And from a radio standpoint, working with guys like Chris Russo and, getting to, kind of pick the brain at all times of other people, I think is extremely huge. And for me, a lot of times in those conversations, you're just trying to kind of get an idea of how they do it and things they're trying to accomplish, but you also have to make it your own. This is it's a copycat league in this industry. And, it's like, I remember when Nirvana came out, and then there were like, 18 other bands that tried to be the same. Right. And like, Creed and Nickelback and all 12 bands that sound like them. Like, this is just the world that we are in, the entertainment industry. And I think in this business, there's too much of that copycat, too many people trying to be Stephen A. Smith, too many people, trying to be whoever they think the guy is. So you want to take those things, and you also want to kind of you have to be unique. You have to stand out in some way. You have to be different than the other, 12 pitchers in the draft who all have plus fastballs and all have this and all have that, and they're all 6'6" and higher, certainly not me included. But those guys, when you talk about like drafting from a GM standpoint, same thing. They're looking for what makes them different, right? And sometimes it's the character, sometimes it's the work ethic, the attitude. You have to bring those kind of things and differentiate yourself.
Casey, obviously being in the industry as long as you have, I'm sure you've had a chance to interview some pretty amazing or big name athletes or coaches in sports. Is there one particular athlete or coach interview that really stands out that maybe people don't know about who you've interviewed perhaps?
I mean, I don't want to say I've interviewed everybody because clearly I have not. But on the baseball side, most people. Honestly, like the things to me that I cherish are the relationships that I built over the years with people. Obviously, and also people, coworkers. I mean, working a desk next to Shaq, is not something I had on my scorecard when I was 12 years old, 15, and all that stuff. And really, around the same age, seeing him become a star, I wasn't like, hey, we'll be sitting next to each other. But I think, for me, it's a lot of the regulars having in radio over the years. Like I built a really special relationship with, guys like Joe Madden, who after my first son was born, called me to congratulate me, things like that. I mean, those kind of relationships that you build are important. And I think, to me, we get a chance to really get behind the scenes and kind of pull back the curtain. Like John Gibbons, Gibby, who's a bench coach right now at the Mets, I have a very, very good relationship with. There's certain people you just become friends with. And, to me, I think one of the cool things is that you realize they're just people. And I always say this to anybody. There are a lot of misconceptions about athletes and people who work in this business, versus people who don't. The closer you get to the teams, you realize, there's good people, there's bad people. It's just like everything else. You know what I mean? So it's getting to know them behind the scenes, who are their families, and being out with those are the pinch me moments more than anything else, to be honest with you. I mean, because we're all fans in the first place. So getting a chance to kind of break those boundaries, like, I would say of any relationship I have in this industry, Cliff Floyd, and probably among the top, if not the top. I mean, he and I are close still. And, after working together as my broadcast partner on radio for 2 years, and those kind of things there, and I covered him in the clubhouse in 2006 with the Mets too. So, those things they're really cool because you get a chance to just realize that not only have you made it, but you're also just considered a person. You're not, like, to quote Almost Famous, you're not the enemy. You know what I mean? Like it's that moment where, you're accepted just as a human, and you realize athletes are looking for the same. They don't want to be the guy who went 0 for 4 for 4 for 4. They just want to be the guy who's telling you the name to write on the Starbucks coffee sometimes,
So like you said, television, radio, digital platforms, all different opportunities. How do you look at today's, like you do podcasts now, and we do podcasts, and the industry is changing. How do you look at adjusting to the industry now, doing podcasts, as compared to when we did TV, we did radio, and those mediums of the past, and adjusting to it?
It's very different. People want things in shorter, versions, clearly. So I think, it's weird now being this clip age where, let's take 58 seconds and find, we talk about clickbait, but really that's what it is. I mean, everybody in this business is trying to find, a thumbnail. The idea, what do you mean a picture is going to matter how many people are going to care about what I say, is something that was so foreign to anybody. So things have clearly changed. There's also a lot more people on the landscape, which I think is great, because anybody should have a shot to do anything that they want. And it gives people who, you've got people who are working as teachers, and this is just like the thing that they do once a week to kind of get in. Great. And they're reaching out on Twitter and trying to get guests and all this. So I think it's flooded the industry. For me, that's not the part of the industry that to me has changed as much as the fact that right now, I don't think we thrive on actually telling anyone anything. We're not giving information. We're not really breaking things down. It's who broke it first. We're not really sitting there and having conversations. We're talking at people. It is, it looks, Stephen A. Smith is a great example, right? How many of the things that come out of his mouth are, and I've met him, a nice guy, but how many things that come out are for what the reaction is going to be, and how much are truly what he would say if it was not going to happen. And by the way, can't blame him, because look what's happened. And he's obviously a tremendously brilliant guy as well. But my point being is that you've got now people who flock and thrive towards that shock jock mentality only. And it makes the people who are kind of doing the A to Z work sometimes stand in the background.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, with where things, Nick and I are going to eventually, Casey, get shirts that say ever changing or ever evolving sports media landscapes. We talk about it all the time on our program, because, our actual show's a 3-hour media in business talk show, almost like, being on radio is how we package our program. But Casey, obviously, we see the Islanders sign in the background. We also know that you're a Mets fan and a New York native living in Atlanta. And this is another thing, though, Casey, that I always tell young aspiring broadcasters. You need to learn to separate your fandom from when you're on air doing any kind of commentary, because obviously, bias is one thing. But also, I know it's a difficult thing to do, though, but I've had to, tell people on other networks I was a part of, hey, yes, you can be a fan of your team, but you really can't always blurt it out. I mean, I know I'm guilty of that a lot as well and of charge. But Casey, how do you people, mainly yourself, though, but I think anyone trying to be into the industry, how does one, though, balance the fandom with being a neutral, objective broadcaster? And maybe is that line, though, even nowadays still difficult to walk for certain people in general?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, I am of the belief, I think sometimes it depends where you work and it depends what you do. I was not, I grew up listening to WFAN, right? So for me, all I knew was how close I felt to each host based on who they rooted for, or what relationship I felt with them, even from a couch, based on what they told me. They couldn't lose sleep. I resonated with them, and vice versa, because they were like me. They were living and dying with, whomever the team was, right? And everybody's kind of got that. So for me, I think people who hide it and act like they don't have a team growing up or weren't a fan, it doesn't make any sense to me. However, I think in radio and in talk radio, it allows you a lot more liberties, because that is that relationship. On TV, you have to be able to be unbiased. And there, people are always going to think there's biases. But at the same time, I've always laughed, regardless. I'll give you an example of whatever you think about Joe Buck. Every game he's ever called, he loves and hates both teams. And the fans feel the same way, right? So how do you act that way? Like you talk about the Islanders, like when, currently when Brendan Burke is doing national TV, he's not the Islanders guy. And whether you grew up a fan of the team or not, when you cover these guys every day, eventually you kind of fall in love with them and have relationships and all that, but you have to separate yourself. I will tell you a quick story, the one time it was difficult for me was in 2006 covering the Mets. So I had covered them for MLB.com. I was doing a show called Next Stop Shea, which used to play on Diamond Vision at Shea Stadium during BP. And that was difficult. Like the division, when they clinched, I was trying not to be a fan and trying to be professional. When Endy Chavez made that catch, it was hard not to scream out loud in a press box. But over the years, I kind of learned that, it's okay to be like, hey, we know you're a Met guy, but you can't bring that to the table unless you're doing radio or a podcast. And then, of course, you can be more honest about it. But I think on television, it's way harder. Those guys have to be able to, whether play-by-play or at a desk, be down the middle. It's difficult sometimes.
Take notes, Joe Davis.
Yes, during the World Series call. Sounds like the local Dodger announcer.
Yeah,
well, he is, but...
and he is. And that's hard.
I just thought that call was odd at the end of that World Series. Just, it felt very Dodger-like instead of very national sounding like for the World Series. As it was.
And I'm sure it probably naturally, unfortunately, for him. Yeah,
that's true. We'll try to finish up on this, but I miss you, man, in the industry, like doing a lot of different things and watching you. And I really hope you find a way, like, to get back there. Like, are you? I guess I can ask: Are you working on something or trying to get back?
Still try it. Yeah. So I do radio down here in Atlanta. on the weekends, and I'm still efforting. I mean, it's a business where, like anything else, and I think this is kind of a life lesson, we can't, in all of our years, forget about what we learned through those years, right? And how much we talked about even in this half an hour about perseverance and about getting a break and about all those sorts of things. So I may be turning 47 in October, but I still remember how I felt at 24 when those things were happening to me. So I just got to kind of keep that mindset, and it is a weird business that way. So I'm luckily I've got a couple of white hairs in the beard, but I'm gonna clip them off after this interview. So I still got to run left in me. I still I need some some point somebody's gonna chant like they do in the WWE. He's still got it. So
Still got it.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's great. That is awesome. I guess, Casey, probably to go back a little bit to where sports broadcasting is going. And Nick and I had this discussion yesterday on Press Row here on Playback and here on ETB, is that, we're very much convinced that the industry is going a different direction. We actually broke a story about Eric Shanks, the Fox Sports CEO, basically pot calling the kettle black, saying sports fans have kind of gotten screwed because, leagues and teams are going to Prime Video or Netflix or streaming platforms, as Nick and I talk about a lot with the NBA going there to Prime into Peacock starting this upcoming basketball season. But Casey, was so much, turnover with where people are watching sports, new platforms, personalities are now emerging. Where do you perhaps see the industry going in the next 5 to 10 years, where Nick and I really are of the belief within that time frame, everything's going to streaming pretty soon for sports?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we're headed, and I think Netflix is usually is honestly a big part of that, is seeing them kind of transition over. It's one thing to see some of these streaming platforms that had done sports in one way or the other, then kind of obtain them and make it, hey, this is where you could watch it. Now when you see Amazon, right, getting football, and you've got Netflix, putting on sporting events and big events, it might start with combat sports, but it's not going to end there. I mean, look at the shows getting involved in holiday games is one thing, but let's see how much further that goes. And I think then who's going to try and combat them? I mean, look, it's a great example. Paramount Plus jumps in and gets the UFC. They weren't even in the conversation of, and $7 billion. I mean, the amount of money they're spending is ludicrous that they're putting in, and took them from ESPN, who wanted them back. So it gives you an example. I mean, ESPN, the big boy in that ring, and they lose to Paramount Plus. And whether you're into combat sports or not, that was a huge message sender for me, to your point, that I think we're already way into heading that direction, but we will officially be fully in that direction at some point, because there are a lot of people now who I don't even have cable. I mean, everything I do is streaming. So, you know what I mean? Like, why?
It feels inevitable.
Yes, for sure.
It feels inevitable.
Just to wrap this up, just Casey, if you want to just tell everybody where you're doing radio, where you're doing a podcast, just so people can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me weekends on 680 The Fan, and obviously I will kind of let people know when I'm on, because I'm doing some fill-in stuff here in Atlanta, which you could still listen to nationally. I am at Casey Stern on Twitter or X, so you can find me there. Always love talking back and forth with people. I post all my podcast videos and comments and things of that nature, and interviews on there as well, which you can find it Unfiltered with Casey Stern. You can get it on Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts, X, Facebook, and also Instagram as well. So plenty of ways to hear me waxing poetic about most things and yelling at the Mets.
No, but I give Casey a lot of credit, because he helped me get really motivated to be in this business, and was really, like I said, my first repeating guest on my show in college radio, and pushing me to work harder in this business. So I wanted to see if I get back to
that's a huge compliment. I really appreciate that, man. That's a huge compliment. Thank you. I mean, you did the work, not me, but I appreciate that. That's really cool. Thanks.
So thanks, Casey. Appreciate you being on, and hopefully we can talk again in the future.
Anytime, boys. You just holler and let me know. And sorry about the scheduling snafus, but good.
No worries, man.
Down. No, man. And, I totally get it. So
enjoy San Diego and Plainview, I guess, too. Yeah.
All right, man.
The
Thanks,
sun is
Casey.
coming out finally out here. But yes,
There you
Casey
go.
Stern, thank you for the
Yeah,
time. We
right.
appreciate it this morning,
Yeah,
and
take it
we
easy,
look forward to
guys.
having you again on the future.
Yeah. So
That was awesome. What a
that was
guy.
that was amazing. I go back. Well, we'll finish up for a couple minutes here, but he's an amazing guy. Like, there's so much more we could have talked about, but we kind of ran out of time because he had stuff to do. Which busy guy. But
Busy
what'd you
Beaver,
make?
baby. We love it.
What'd you make of that, though?
You know, again, I think, Nick, it's a very good story of persevering, never saying no when you get that first opportunity. And obviously, it led to so many cool things for him. Again, like you said, he got to work with Shaq and Ernie Johnson on Inside the NBA and doing baseball on TBS and March Madness, and obviously we didn't get a chance to talk about the grind because, you and I talked about the grind of how long a day March Madness is when you first start the tournament. With, all those games, at, noon Eastern time or like 9 o'clock Pacific time in the morning, you've got the stacked start times. I mean, you're going all the way till about 2 o'clock in the morning Eastern because you got so many games to cover and it's an all day thing. You got halftime, pregame, the big pregame, halftime of every single game on your station on top of like the late night recap. So, March Madness is one thing. Obviously, doing baseball every day is one thing. Basketball is one thing. But also, the story, though, I think, Nick, of him not giving up after ESPN's dream job rejected him, though, and still, pressing on and soldiering on even after that big rejection of like, you're not going to be on SportsCenter. We apologize.
No, I get that. And and first of all, I'm appreciative that he remembered being on my show.
I mean, how cool is that, though? I mean, how cool is that someone, Nick, from, because in a way, this is where you and I are like further intertwined because the same thing happened with me when I was in college radio, when I interviewed Candace Parker and Candace Wiggins. Obviously, Candace Parker, 3-time WNBA champion. Getting to interview one of your favorite athletes of all time is one thing, but then you go to a game like a year later and she remembers who you were and you still talk every so often via social media when she's not doing Turner or picking up the kids from school or what have you. And obviously, Candace Wiggins, her dad played with the Padres on the '84 team. I'm very close with her family who lives in town. I got invited to go to her Hall of Fame induction ceremony here for the Breitbart Hall of Fame for the San Diego Hall of Champions. And, that still, very much is close. But then here, Nick, having Casey on almost weekly when he's in college radio. And again, the circle, again, goes full circle because now Nick got to thank Casey Stern on playback here today.
Yeah. And by the way, this goes all the way back to like 2011, 2012, by the way. So what year are we in now? 25? We're talking about 13 years ago. Think about how different the industry was 13 years ago. There was no exclusive podcasting. There was no really direct influencer content. YouTube wasn't as big as it was now. I mean, that was real radio, as you and I like to discuss, where he called into our line. We had him on. We did a lot of football, a lot of baseball, because at the time he was, like he said, he was doing Sirius XM with NFL and Major League Baseball. And I forgot to ask him. I'll have to ask him another time when we can get him on. But he was doing both at one point. Like, he was doing the Sirius XM shows. Like he said, he did afternoon drive for MLB Network Radio for 12 years. And then he would go off towards the latter half doing TV down in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So that I thought that was an accurate question when we asked him about the grind of working in the business, because this guy is one of the most incredibly hard workers I've ever seen. And I was concerned when he was off air at one point for a long period of time. And I said, where is this guy? This guy's too good not to be on TV, on radio. Where? And it just felt odd that he was not on somewhere. I'm glad that he's back on in Atlanta doing radio, at least on the weekends. And he's doing the podcast. Actually, he's got 2 podcasts, the Unfiltered with Casey Stern. And he does the the Blev. I don't know. Is it Believe or Blev? I never know how to
I don't know, but I
pronounce
know that they're on FanDuel Sports here in Southern California for the Chargers and Rams.
because I think he does the Blev and Mets podcast also because or Believe. I think it's Believe in Mets. That was an incredible experience, and being able to do a Mets show and to do his own sports show. And I love his personality. Like he doesn't hold it back. Hey, unfiltered, great name for a show. I want to mention also, because since we're here, there was one story. We can talk about one story because it broke while we were kind of or about a couple hours ago.
Yes.
So we found out more about the Molly Qerim story.
Oh boy.
Because you saw the link I put in our Slack. So it came out via The Athletic from Richard Dysage, who does the media podcast. Him and Marchand do media stuff over at The Athletic. So the timeline of Molly Qerim's ESPN exit was accelerated. Now we knew part of this already. After a report from the Sports Business Journal Monday stated that she was leaving ESPN at the end of the year, president of content Bert Magnus said, Magnus expanded on Qerim's departure in a long-form interview with Richard Dysage that will be published in the upcoming days. So I'm sure you and I will be all over listening to that for next
That'll
episode.
be our lead story next week.
He said that ESPN and Qerim were negotiating about roles beyond First Take.
Whoa. Hey now.
He made clear that ESPN wanted her to stay at the company, even as Qerim was going to be coming off the show at the end of the year, regardless if she was staying or not.
So it sounds like they tried to keep her within ESPN, but in a different role, and she didn't want to take like what she would have thought would be a demotion.
Well, no, I
what
think
it feels like.
They were discussing her being on different show content, which, by the way, and I said this on the video, and some people were not. And by the way, I don't give a crap what people say on our YouTube opinions section sometime because they say dumb things. But I was saying in the video, how much gas bagging can you take from Stephen A. Smith for 10 years? Because her job is tough, man. Like, you said it, I said it. It's like being a glorified babysitter.
Bingo. I mean, it's like my comparison made yesterday to Coach Hank Egan, who had been a 10-year head coach at the University of San Diego. He coached Mike Brown and Eric Musselman and, Mike Hopp to the first ever, I think, or second ever tournament for the Toreros. And then he went and became a very successful NBA assistant coach with the Spurs. He was coaching with Cleveland at one point with a very young LeBron James. And because him and Greg Popovich were teammates in college at the Air Force Academy, Greg brought him onto the Spurs staff when they began their run of winning championships. And when Hank came back to San Diego, where he was living at the time, and my dad had asked him at a welcome back event for him, how's life in the NBA? He said, Bill, I love it, but I hate being Dennis's babysitter because whenever Dennis Rodman, with the Spurs at the time, would throw his temper tantrums, Pop would make Hank go and babysit Dennis on the bench, after he would foul out of a game or he would be pulled from a game after a bad play or a bad performance. And in a way, that's how I feel like that the First Take moderator chair is, because all you're doing is sitting there and spoon feeding the baby food to Stephen A. Smith every morning or afternoon, wherever you're at.
Yeah. I mean, I think Casey made another great point during the interview, like talking about Skip Bayless, how some people, like, he's got to be smart in some capacity because it's tough to be in TV.
Yeah.
Do you have to like his content? Absolutely not.
No.
But I think Casey made a very accurate point, saying that just because people don't like him, it doesn't mean he's not good at doing TV or writing, because he was a columnist for, 30, 40 years. So you have to be smart and have some street smarts to be able to work on TV or be in radio or do what we do here in podcasting. Because if you can't put 2 and 2 together to make 4, you're just going to fall on your face.
Or does 1 and 1 make 3?
That's true. 2 plus 2 isn't 5, it's 6. 6. Yes, that's a Fairly Odd Parents reference. There is some other news that just broke as well, actually, and it does include Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
So according to Michael McCarthy, this was about 2 or 3 minutes ago, Stephen A. Smith will join the cast of ESPN's Monday Night Countdown, starting with Monday night's Lions at Ravens of Baltimore. So get ready to see more Stephen A. Smith. Yay!
All right, I'm a head out. Enough already. What more does this guy need to do at ESPN? I mean, are we going to have him on with? Are we going to have him on eventually with Steve Levy and PK Subban and Mark Messier for the NHL pregame show starting in a couple of weeks?
Oh God, please don't put him on.
Because believe me, if there's one person though, Nick, at that network that will keep Stephen A. in line, believe it or not, it's PK Subban, as we saw during the Four Nations face-off back in February.
That was nuts, by the way. But I don't get why this guy keeps getting more and more and more and more. And we talked about it on Press Row yesterday. This guy, his contracts got leaked, so now he's making $20 million a year from ESPN. That one was public, but the Sirius contract came out, so he's making 3 years, $36 million from Sirius. So that's $13 million a year. So he's making $33 million a year combined to gas bag on air. And not to bring this up because I regurgitated it from yesterday, but
who cares?
You saw what happened after he went on Sirius and he started talking about Molly, and now all of a sudden the videos are private on his YouTube channel. And they don't exist on Twitter either. Was it the ESPN suits that got involved saying, hey, like you got to turn it down a little bit? Like,
I would not be surprised.
Because I'm wondering if he's part of the issue, even though he claims that he had her back the whole time. And
I don't, it's the old Anchorman line. I don't believe you.
Yeah, because if that were the case, you and I said it yesterday, where we said, go to bat for her if you wanted her there.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Because I guarantee you, if you said give her the money, you think they're going to not listen to Stephen A. because he's the big, I hate saying this cliche, but cash cow for.
He's big dog right now at ESPN.
I mean, him and McAfee probably, right? Or
I would think so. It would have to be those two.
I would say Stephen A. is far and away the number one right now.
1,000%.
McAfee would probably be a clear two, but I don't know. Putting him on Monday Night Countdown, though, for Monday Night Football. So think about this. So he's going to be on NBA Countdown. He's going to be on Monday Night Countdown for NFL. First of all, how does he not physically get sick the amount of work that he's running around and doing?
I mean, how do you think I feel half the time? Believe it or not, a show on Monday, show on Wednesday or Thursday on top of doing, college games right now, hockey games coming in October. Trying to juggle everything is just, and I mean, you and I are used to it though, because we've been doing it for 15, 16, 17 years. But believe me, it takes a toll when you wake up in the morning and like your ear hurts, your throat's starting to hurt. I mean, and I got a game at 10 o'clock Eastern time this evening. And I got two events tomorrow, an event Saturday, an event on Sunday. There's no time to breathe.
In the sports industry now, you can't stop. You have to, the industry keeps moving. That's what we're doing here. And for us, it starts with the ad that you see scrolling across. If you can't see it I don't know if you can see it on YouTube, but
don't worry. We'll read it in a minute. Don't worry.
But that was kind of you and I had that aha moment for the first time in a while when that deal came across, because that was kind of the beginnings of the success that we're hoping to get. Now, Casey said it well too. You can't stop. You gotta keep grinding and moving and keep moving on to those pastures to grow. And trust me, we're not stopping there. We want more brand deals that help us do this individually at some point.
I will say it, though. Nick can rip my head off when the show's over. But in the words of Taylor Swift, it's can't stop, won't stop, because that's literally where we're going. Because today's ETB Network program is brought to you by our friends over at Novig, America's #1 sports prediction market. Here's the difference, gang. Instead of playing against the house like any other sports book, FanDuel, DraftKings, you name it, Novig lets you play against real users like me versus Nick, for example. That means no house edge. You get better odds. And more importantly, you're 10 times more likely to win in the long run. It's the only free exchange. So you keep 100% of whatever you win. You can, and also even further, you can even choose to take the best available odds or offer yours to the market, and then it can go from there. You can even practice by trading Nova coins for fun. If you're ready to compete, you can trade Nova Cash for rewards and cash prizes. It's live in 35 states, including California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, and New York. It plays on 13 sports like baseball, football, basketball, hockey, women's, the WNBA, soccer, college football, college basketball, the UFC, tennis, and golf. Sign up today and you'll receive 1,000 Novig coins plus $5 in Novig cash. Your first purchase unlocks even more bonuses, including a spend 5, get 50 in coins. Use the promo code ETB Network. Now you must be 21 years old or to play. Please gamble responsibly. If you have a problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER.
It's so weird hearing that we have a partner now in this industry. It's all about leverage. We talk about this all the time.
And not the leverage where you get flagged for in American football. Different kind of leverage.
Yes. Ugh, I still laugh about that the Broncos lost the game that way. The Patriots lost the game to the Jets that way. I mean, so you know what? It's a great time for this network. We are really thriving and growing. We hit our first goal of over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is an incredible feeling. And it's now hitting the watch hours on the YouTube side, which we're working towards, which the YouTube simulcasts on here actually help that. And upward and onward. And I'm trying to think what is our schedule for Press Row, just so we can let people in for.
We'll be back again next Thursday at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific time. We'll see.
I have to look at that schedule for next week because
I have an event in the evening I have to be at.
I have to look because I think that's when. Oh no, we should be. Oh no, I'm thinking Tuesday. Never mind. because of Outsiders and Unnecessary Wagers. Because Unnecessary Wagers is on Tuesday at 4. Not
also presented by Novig.
Yes. So yes, we will be able to be on at 4 o'clock on Thursday, and yes, we will do the WNBA playoffs. Hopefully, starting next week.
Yeah, because after this week concludes, like this is one of the first major long weeks. Tonight actually is our volleyball home opener. They've been on the road for the first 8 games of the year. They've gone to Hawaii, they've gone to LA, and they've gone to Seattle. So our first official home game is this evening. Regardless, though, we will be having WNBA playoffs. We'll have another Press Row parlay or another WNBA parlay. We did not hit last night, sadly, because the Liberty got clobbered at home last night.
I gave you the harder game, and we got that right.
Well, we came up short with the game that we thought was already in the bag.
The plus 10.5 for the Valkyries, I just think that, first of all, anything double-digit spread is ridiculous.
Take that all the time.
So I thought that was going to be the sweat game. That was the easy game. The Liberty, on the other hand, decided, you know what? We won game 1, so we're just going to dog it like the Pittsburgh Steelers and not try. Because that's what they're known for, playing down to their competition. Always, screw you, Aaron Rodgers. I don't care.
Hey, Rodgers.
The one last thing I want to conclude with, by the way, and it happened last night, sadly. So my grandmother did pass away. I don't shy away from talking about stuff on here. That's what I think makes us better, that we talk about as much as we can. That was tough last night. You couldn't tell during the interview. I am tired partially, and Callan knows this because I was up until 5 a.m. this morning, running around like crazy. It's weird not having grandparents on either side anymore.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
I took care of my grandma, along with my family, but I was around for almost every day for the last 5 to 6 years. I took care of the pool at their house. I did all that stuff. So it's kind of weird when I went over last night. I panically had to run out of here last night. And the breathing was not well, and get the news. And yeah, so if I seem a little off-ish today, but I think I held it together for that interview for the most part. But if you don't see me for a couple days, you know why. I'm not disappearing. Let me just make sure. Let me confirm that to everybody. But the next couple days, I'm going to be dealing with that. So just hopefully people understand that.
Yeah, and I'm sure they do, Nick. And I always say that, the value of life sometimes means more than wins and losses in the standings or what you read in a box score. That, stuff like this happens, and I'm right there with you. I lost grandparents on both sides of my family when I was young or even within the last couple of years. And Sally just had a uncle or a grandfather on my mom's side who just passed a few weeks ago as well, which didn't really know about till past couple days. So obviously wishing you and your family all the best, because stuff like this sucks, and you wish that everyone could live till they're 100 or whatever, obviously. And if Nick will be in and out, obviously I know that it was kind of like code red late last night, on the East Coast. It was still fairly mid-evening here when Nick informed us about the news. It was about like 9:00 my time out here in San Diego. I was actually out at the bar last night celebrating my 10 years with the AHL club, here in San Diego last night. But even then, though, it Nick's news kind of like obviously hits home, and it kind of put a bit of a damper on my evening. It's like I don't like seeing anyone lose family. Like I've said, like I came running into my bedroom yesterday afternoon, white collared shirt on. You're like, wait, why is he dressed up? Like, because I was literally doing a hit for the local news here in San Diego.
I was going to say, I appreciate the getup for the show. Like,
do I need to start doing it more often? No, I'm not.
You do whatever you want. I'm not.
I'm not going to do it. That was a one-time thing because I was. And that's a whole different thing. That was obviously, the pet scam story I talked about here a couple times.
I watched the hit, by the way. It was actually very well put together. Like they did a good job.
That, and then, I had friends reaching out like, hey, this is nice seeing you in a different capacity, but sucks that it happened to, what the conditions were. But, that was a thing though, that like at 11 a.m. Eastern time yesterday, I got an email saying we'd like to come out and do the story. I'm like, sure. So I panically, got him to shower, like got all ready to go, and like, oh crap, I need to hope that this is done by 1:00 my time, otherwise I'm screwed. And 12:59, I got in here.
Somehow you were last minute Charlie, no pun intended, for my brother's dog's name. But I was like, oh my God, is he gonna get here? Or I'm like,
I know Nick's panically texting me, I'm like, dude, like we're right there, like
I forgot what I texted you.
Oh, I forget, but
I'm looking this up really quick just to see if I.
Oh well, it was the whole Kevin Coppolo 5 minutes. Show starts in 5 minutes.
5 minutes. You got 5 minutes, and I'm not wearing pants.
Oh man, but thankfully, thankfully everything worked out, which is good. And again, a lot of people reached out to me about the story, and like, hey, I'm sorry this happened. He said, in the long run, it helped. Or it had a happy ending because my folks and I ended up getting a new dog like the next day after the scam finally ended. And we finally, severed all communications with what was going on. But I mean, if you want to watch the story, it is on my social platforms via KFMB, CBS 8 in San Diego.
Yeah. And by the way, because I posted a picture on Instagram last night, which a lot of people saw. I appreciate all the people writing messages on it and reaching out. I've got a lot of texts today. My phone is like blowing up like a hot box.
Yeah.
So I appreciate everybody who's reached out. I know some families like are not as close as others. Like mine was like we were the traditional Italian close family. Why, you little?
Okay, Tommy DeVito.
But no, like I wrote, like part of the description I wrote in the post, like I said, from like the family memories to the Pacino days, if you've ever heard of Pacino before. It's kind of like another version of bingo in a sense.
Okay. Is it an East Coast thing?
No, anyone could play it, but you get instead of it being bingo numbers on a card, it's still cards, but it's got the spots are filled in with playing cards.
Okay.
So like all the
Oh,
four
okay.
suits.
Yeah, I have seen this before. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
And so you could do all different things like bingo, like you could do full card, four corners, lines, and all that stuff. And the funny story
Cool.
I tell all the time, because we used to play, my brother and I, when we were over, uh, and mostly me, but we would go over, and my grandfather, my grandmother, and I would play this. And I didn't know it at the time because I was too young and I didn't know it. But like whoever won, like they would turn the Pekino chips into money. That's how the game worked.
Oh,
So like,
play for money.
well, yes, I was gambling at the young age of whatever, I guess.
The
But
tender age of 10.
and all of a sudden, like I didn't know it at the time, but all of a sudden, like she would like snap her fingers, and I'm like, oh wait, this, why did you do that? And I'm like magic. I'm like, okay, magic. But and then my favorite experience, and I have a whole, I actually wrote a whole thing that I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
actually read at the church or wherever, the funeral home. I don't know what we're doing yet, but one of my favorite experiences was cooking for my grandparents and making the chicken cutlets. We were chicken cutlet mashed potatoes. Oh, I think about that now. And my grandmother was vegetarian. And
Oh, wow.
she was still willing to put the gloves on
And make the
and
chicken.
and make the chicken.
Wow. Good on her.
And at the time, and I don't have the allergy anymore. I had an egg allergy at the time. I was afraid to touch anything due to food allergies at the time. But
I don't blame you.
she put me to work in the kitchen and said, "We're going to learn how to cook," and that's kind of got me over the fear of. Because I was afraid to crack eggs because I was allergic, like at the time. And so now I know how to do that in some capacity, how to make a authentic chicken cutlet. And we did other things too. My grandfather was an amazing chef too, on top of that. So we used to sit and when I tell you Christmas,
Oh, baby.
if you know a traditional Italian Christmas dinner,
Is it as good as Tony Reali's mom making lasagna?
oh god, like there was enough food. Like we had one of those large
Oh,
tables.
like the long, like Oktoberfest style dinner dining room tables?
My grandfather and my grandmother did not know what simple holiday dinner meant, and I mean
Above
that
and beyond the Call of Duty every Christmas.
and I mean that in the nicest way possible.
In a good way, yes, in a good way.
Yes, and there was so much food. Like I had food like a food anxiety type thing where if I saw too much food on the table at the time, like my stomach would just kind of like what's the word? Like tighten up. And so that was me, like at times. The food was unbelievable. I didn't even hear it, by the way.
I did. Flash flood warning is in effect now because of the weather.
It's funny how you hear it, but I never hear it.
Because it's so damn loud on the television because I'm in my bedroom, kind of in the back of the house. The living room is obviously up front, but the tones are so loud, like it radiates from the living room all the way to the back of the house.
That's interesting. Okay. But
As long as it's not being picked up on here, I'm happy. But I can hear it though, obviously in the house. But yes, it's.
I mean, if I can't hear it, that means most people probably can't hear
good.
it. But just to finish that, yeah. So there was so much food that I get anxiety. Well, I had anxiety to begin with growing up as a kid, but there was so much food that like we'd have leftovers for 2 weeks. That's how much. I used to look forward to the leftovers sometimes, even like that's how much food there was. But it's weird now.
Especially Thanksgiving when you get like turkey and ham sandwiches.
Oh God, don't even get me started. Any holiday. It was like, all right, I'm gonna have 2 weeks of food to eat. But I'll finish with this just because I want to read one thing
Please
off
do.
that post.
Please do.
I'll pull up here just so. There's 2 things she said to me, and this is when I was younger, but I still remember it to this day. One, you will always learn something new every day. That's something she used to say to me a ton. And I believe to this day, we always learn something new. And the final thing was, you will never stop learning as old as you get.
I love it.
So those are two things that stuck with me through all these years. And I'm 32 now. So that's from like over 30 years of that experience. So just cherish everything you have with your family. Don't fight, don't argue. It's not worth it. Because you never know when it ends. And
Yeah.
I know that sounds a little darkish, but it's more the reality. Be happy with everything you have because you never know when it's gonna be gone.
Yeah. And I mean, I think your grandmother gave everyone great advice right there is you never, I think though, in this profession we're in though, Nick, is that you never stop learning. You're always learning something new every day. Like eventually I'm going to learn how to really operate playback, maybe not as great as you, but pretty dang close enough to it when it comes to if I need to schedule a program because some big story broke and maybe we need to go on and talk about something big in the sports media industry and you're not around for some reason. And then, it goes to me, for example, that you never stop learning. You never stop progressing. You never should stop learning. And, I mean, those two things of advice are just, I mean, I recall when, 5 years ago, Nick, when we were coming out of COVID, I shared my experiences. We both shared our experiences about, working during the course of the pandemic. And, I, say all the time that when fans began to come back to games in early 2021 or late 2021, that I remember being told by Shauna Nichols, who was the in-game DJ for the Milwaukee Bucks. Her and I have been friends for a long time, pre-COVID, during COVID, and obviously still now.
Should be a great guest on this show, by the way.
Yeah, believe me, I'm trying, man. But I remember though that I think I had like DM'd her one day randomly and just kind of said, I don't know how you and I are able to do this, with no one being in the stands. Us doing our job in the arena is dead silent other than just the players, the coaches, the training staff, other coworkers, but we're so far away from each other. And she said, yeah, Cal, I agree. But you know what? We both just got to keep going. And that was my like tagline for that first year coming back is that you just got to keep going, and I recall when the indoor soccer team I was announcing for, they had won the championship during the COVID shutdown. And I didn't get a chance to work any games. The franchise, out of the generosity of their heart, Nick, still gave me a ring, even though I didn't work a single game for them. Then that following season, when they came back home and fans were allowed to come and we won it again, that just made, that was my third title with them in 11 years. But that was the whole, like, not revenge tour, but like the whole, you just got to keep going. I mean, we had 3 home games that year that we had under 1,000 fans because the state kept changing the mask mandates for indoor arenas, and people were getting, again, perhaps, terrified again about, oh, not again. We don't want to go out into the public or whatnot. And even then, we still win it all though that season. And that was the first real celebration I got to be a part of. Because when I first got there, in 2012, 2013, I was like just out of high school and obviously couldn't go out and drink and pop corks and champagne and drink beer. And then when the COVID season title was won, me and my friends had to go to a bar, near my house and celebrate there. And then obviously
don't get caught.
Oh, we didn't, which is nice. We got to sit outside and all that good stuff. And then when we won it all though at home in 2021, 22, and that was my third title. And to be able to celebrate on the field, the locker room, at the team offices, and not get home till like 4:00 in the morning from drinking out of the trophy, taking victory shots, smoking a couple stogies, like that is what made that year that was so dark for so many people, like a little ray of hope of that where we were going to be coming from. And even like, in times of, losing family, and I think, Nick, the one thing we didn't bring up with Casey is, his personal story is also like a very good knockdown comeback from like personal strife. But you and I usually have made it a point though to bring up about how demanding the industry is. Like, this is not all fun and games, and this industry will eat you up, chew you up, spit you out over and over and over, and that you miss a lot of things. Like I've missed my birthday. I've missed my parents' birthdays, my brother's birthday. You've missed your birthday. We've missed, graduations. We've missed holidays, working around the holiday season.
I worked
There's a lot that,
overnights.
there's a lot of sacrifice that goes on. And if you're not willing to sacrifice those things, this industry will eat you alive from your first day on the job.
I mean, in my job at ABC for 4 years, the first year and a half, I worked 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. for that long, like almost Monday through Friday, essentially.
Yeah.
And holidays were a nightmare. There'd be some days like where I'd have to sit and eat and then head off to the station right after, and I had a fight with them to get Christmas Eve off. That was the one Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve were the only two that I said I just refuse to work. I'm not going into the city.
Yeah.
One, because it's a nightmare because you have no idea what to expect. But
especially in New York.
So I told them, I said, any other holiday, Thanksgiving included, I don't mind coming in and working afterwards. But Christmas and New Year's, sorry. Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, I'm not coming. So
yeah, I'm not going to do it. Sorry.
Yeah, first of all, New Year's Eve, forget it.
Forget about it.
And first of all, I want to be with my family when the ball goes off for New Year's Eve. I really don't want to be in the station. Who wants to do that crap anyway? There's usually it was like the worst of the worst programming because no one was on air anyway. Like it was just a bunch of recorded shit that no one wanted to hear.
Yeah.
But you know what? It is what it is. Like you said, I had to give up a lot of things. Working during COVID, I literally was like the only one on the LIRR going back and forth. It was scary. Like I told you the story that the conductor came through the train and said,
"Someone's on the train. We're not alone."
Like, oh, there's a person on the train. And I literally had to hold myself back from like wanting to like rip the person's head off while I was on the train.
How dare you?
Because I'm like, I already feel bad as it is that my company is making me travel in to the city because they're, you don't come in, you're fired. I'm like,
I don't work here.
I guess I'm working. And the funny story I tell everybody, like I had to go in with my Governor Cuomo at the time.
Hear ye,
hear ye, hear ye, hear police letter ye. And by the way, you think I'm like everyone who's listening, you think I'm kidding. No, I'm telling the truth. I literally had a legal New York City police letter.
You should frame that thing.
I should. And it literally said you're allowed to go in the city, and if you get stopped by cops,
it's literally like the city council or the city of Long Island proclaimed a certain day.
It was New York
Nick
City.
Morganson Day in the city of Plainview, New York, signed by Governor Cuomo.
It was literally a legal New York City police letter for COVID at the time that said that the police can't stop you. You are legally allowed to be in the city during COVID. And I was like, I don't know if I should be happy about this or sad about this, to be honest.
Terrified about this.
Or terrified about this, to be honest. And I'm like, my favorite also is like when I walked, this was in the old building still, because I worked on top of MSG.
Yes.
17 floors above MSG.
High above Madison Square Garden in Manhattan, New York. Or New York, New York.
They had these infrared temperature scanners at the time when I walked in. And yes, get over it. We're talking about COVID. I don't give a crap. And I walk in, they make you stand on this, and then you have to look into it. I felt like I was in like a version of Star Wars or something, like where I'm waiting for like something to go pew, 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 like back at me. And the worst part is like it would go off, and all of a sudden, it would misread your temperature.
Oh, goodness. That's scary.
Because, like, I was going in the summer sometimes during COVID. And
when it was extremely hot and humid, yes.
And stupidly, sometimes I'd wear black shirts, which was a mistake in the middle of this New York summer.
Sir, are you trying to die?
I wasn't even thinking at the time. So I'd walk in, and it would say 100 degrees.
Sir?
And I'm like, and they would say to me, "Well, you can't go upstairs," and I'm like, "I'm not sick." So then I had to step back and then do it like 3 more times, and finally, when I went to
charm.
and then when I went to the new building, they didn't have a machine. They had that stupid thing that you put on the head, but they wouldn't do it on the head. They did it on the arm.
What?
I am not making this up.
Oh my gosh.
And I had a fight with the people to get upstairs because every time they did it on my arm, what would happen?
It didn't work.
No, it would go up and over and say I have a temperature. And
This is all Mr. Krabs' fault.
I'm like, can you just do it on my head? Nope, this is standard procedure. I'm like, first of all, the standard temperature is on your head, not your arm.
Oh, no.
So finally, after I had to argue with the actual company that owned the building, like, they finally start doing it on your head. Like, oh, you don't have a temperature. I'm like, thank you, Captain Obvious.
Gee, I wonder why, you morons.
But I don't know where I was going with that story. But basically, long story short, just be happy with everything you have.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to avoid the Jimmy Kimmel topic too.
Yeah.
You know how bad I want to. I've never liked late night TV, and I don't like him either. And I mean, we did talk about the whole Charlie Kirk thing and all that nonsense. But seriously, that's your moniker to say, "Oh, it was a right wing guy that killed him." Okay,
Whatever.
okay, no one cares.
Yeah, no one cares. It's late night TV. I mean, if it's late night, I'm watching the Padres wrap-up show with 2 radio friends of mine from San Diego Sports 760. I'm rewatching WWE matches from like 25 years ago, or I'm rewatching stuff from the ETV network on Playback, presented by Playback TV on YouTube, and also brought to you by the Novig Sportsbook. Listen up, people. Novig is here to change the way that you play, available in 35 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and New York. Novig is now America's #1 sports prediction market, and it's 10 times more profitable than traditional sports books because there's no house edge. Instead, you bet directly against other fans just like yourself. Novig is also the only exchange that is free, which means that you keep every dollar that you may in fact win. Whether you're putting your money down or plays on NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, college sports, or UFC or tennis, Novig gives you the power to pick the best odds or set your own odds. Sign up today and use the promo code ETB Network, and you'll get 1,000 Novig coins plus $5 in Novig cash and special bonuses, including a spend $5, get 50 back in coins. Novig, where fans play smarter. You must be 21 years old or to play. Please gamble responsibly, and if you have a problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right. I think we've been on for over an hour. I think we gave you a bonus hour of press row. I think that's more than enough.
More than enough for the first press pass episode of Press Row.
I mean, I guess we figured out a way to get guests on when they're not able to join the show. Now,
I'm all for it.
I would. There's some more people I have in mind for this type of format, and hopefully, if it wasn't for his schedule, he probably would have stayed longer. Probably,
Yeah.
But hey, everyone's got to be busy, right? They got to work. But that'll do it for this episode of the Press Row Press Pass. You and I have some stuff to do later after this because we're working on our Novig deal going on here. So stay tuned. You're going to see some new ads coming for Novig and ETB Playback partnership coming. WNBA next week. And yeah, I think that's it. Unless you have anything else left to add.
No, please stay tuned in and stay plugged into ETB. Nick, what programming, though, do we have coming up? Obviously, it's now Thursday. We've got some live NFL football on Prime tonight. What can people look forward to with upcoming content away from WNBA coverage resuming next week for the postseason?
So, at least from the YouTube side only, we have football forecast coming up for the weekend. Obviously, Bando's breakdowns on Friday. Forever Power 5, our college football show on Friday. What else do we have coming up? Let's see. If I'm around, NFL Red Zone on here on Sunday. And then back to normal scheduling starting Monday. I definitely won't be around Monday. I know that for a fact. But hopefully everyone else, we have a full schedule Monday. Puck Talk with the hockey season on the fringe.
More importantly, Monday is actually the live draft for the Puck Talk Fantasy Hockey League. So myself and Jen Kate and some of our friends from the league will be live here on Playback doing a fantasy draft, just like you saw Nick and the boys do for the fantasy football season for ETB's Fantasy Football League. We will have that too for our Fantasy Hockey League starting on Monday. That will be in place of our program of our usual 2-hour hockey talk show on Monday. We'll have our regular program resume next Monday, the following week. But looking forward to that, though, Nick. It's been a while since I played fantasy hockey, but looking forward to meeting some new faces and being a part of a fantasy hockey league for the first time in quite a while.
Yeah, and hopefully we're actually going to have some of those people join the network after the fantasy draft concludes on the hockey side.
Let's go, baby.
So we're getting the wish of growing the Puck Talk program to some more people. You guys had some really good guests in the last couple of weeks.
A lot of great guests, absolutely, yes.
Talking the puck. Really talking the puck.
Yeah, I mean, all of them were great. You, of course, you folks can catch all the replays. Again, as Nick said, though, I think all the replays now are available on YouTube. And also, more importantly, they are back being free here if you're joining us on the Playback platform as well.
Yeah, and I checked our YouTube site. It is working now, at least from what I've...
It was so weird that yesterday it didn't work on the for some reason yesterday.
I mean,
during the show yesterday, it was so weird. It was so bizarre. It was so weird. It was like a white screen, like it was a 404 error.
Yeah, it is working. I just checked.
Yeah, I did too. It was like, yes, finally. Where was that yesterday, though?
Yeah, youtube.com/ETB Network. Subscribe. Help our numbers. We're at 1,021 subscribers exactly. I checked earlier. So help us out, because as we continue to bring more content, and we bring you a great deal in Novig to come incentivized to join us, there's more in the landscape coming.
Yes, there is more to come. But again, folks, a major thank you again to our good man, Casey Stern, who again remembered Nick Morgeson from all those years ago at LIU College Radio.
I apologize for not thanking you for that. I thought I did.
But again, folks, great to be back on this morning, even though it was a early wake-up call out here on the West Coast, but we got it done.
Coffee and pancakes.
Yeah, coffee and pancakes. Thank you, Starbucks.
Hey, that's the next sponsor.
Yeah.
Just say. But for Callum McClure, I'm Nick Morgeson. Until next time,